My name is Raja Miah. This is a Recusant 9 transmission. We are, and have been, I think, a very small community. A small team, in all honesty. Those who did the work up to January last year, when many of you joined us on this journey, those who did the work were small in number, and many of them come on here religiously, I would say, and say hello, and it means a lot to them, and the community we've built means a lot to a lot of people, including very much so myself. So it always pains me when I get news from people that someone's not well, or we've lost someone. You'll know we lost Warren, we've lost Lee, we lost George Hayward, his daughter Julie's here. And it's a combination of pride for me and shame, I think, for our town and the country, that leading the fight alongside me has in the main been a group of elderly people. And it should have been those younger who came forward and fought for this, but that hasn't been the case really in this journey of ours. So my friend David Nestor contacted me yesterday, and he's on here today, but he's not well. So my prayers are with you, David, and I'm sure everyone else within our community will reach out to you and give you whatever comfort they can do. My overwhelming memory of David, I don't mean it in the past tense at all, David, but I was reflecting on it this morning before we spoke, was David was one of the small team who campaigned with me, and he's, sorry if I get your age wrong, David, but you're 83 now, I think. And David was out knocking on doors and delivering leaflets and all of that. And he was at the election count when I stood for MP in my town, and we took a beating. We took a hell of a beating, and we knew we would take a beating, but we had to stand, we had to get the leaflets out, we had to push this out into a space where they couldn't, deny it, and it was another step in the campaign that got us this far. And I was in pain, I think. I've been battered, or I'm at the count, and it's very clear we've not done well, and I'm being mocked by the combination of the Labour Party supporters and the Pakistani sectarians, and you know how it is. And we did okay in the sense that we kept our deposit and all of that. It wasn't like poor Nick Buckley and his 150 or something like that. We managed to keep our deposit, but it was a low point for me. And I'm in the council chamber, wherever the count is, in one of the rooms, and he looks at me and he gives me a pep talk. It's like 1 a.m, and he's like, "And what do you think you're going to do? You're going to just give up? You don't do that. You got to keep going. You got to keep carrying on." And I went home, and I was, if you've ever took a beating in your life, you know what it's like the morning after and the morning after that. And you've still got to get out of bed, still got to go and pick the kid up from school, still got to show my face. And I took those words of David with me, and I replayed them in my mind. So when he told me he wasn't ill this morning, and he messaged me last night, and I was, it's just painful. So please, David, my prayers with you and your lovely wife June, and hopefully we can get through this together. I genuinely believe in the power of prayer, and it's something I never thought about for a long time in my life, but the older I've gotten, everything I've gone through, I genuinely believe in a higher power, and I believe that good will overcome evil, and definitely one of the good ones, mate. So my thoughts and prayers with you. On more comical, excuse me, let me just have a drink of my Vimto. I'm back on the Vimto. I missed it too much, and whatever else I was drinking made no difference whatsoever to the to the acid reflex like stuff. It's one of the, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, and the Vimto is the if it's the one vice I have in my life, I'm clinging on to it. So yeah, I'm back on the Vimto. My friend Marlene, who's maybe on here if she's managed to log on, she never manages to log on properly, but Marlene has been on a cruise, haven't you, Marlene? And whilst on a cruise, Marlene was sharing stories of our community and the work we do with. And by the time the cruise was finished, I'm not sure how many you had convinced, Marlene, but there were so many people who've clearly signed up new to our community simply because Marlene was promoting me on the cruise. So thank you very, very much, Marlene. But on a serious note from that, that's how this community's grown. People telling people sharing with the friends, the relatives, sometimes complete strangers, such as Marlene, of what we have been doing, the campaign we've been on, and encouraging people to join, listen, read, and make their own minds up as to what's taking place and whether this is the truth or I'm some nutcase. So yes, indeed, well done to Marlene. Yes. I've tried more acid, I've tried all sorts. One of the team sent me a message, Raja, put these things under your bed and make your bed tilt like that. Yeah. Vimto Anonymous. Right. I don't know about that. So, I was talking with my friend Nick Buckley, and he's my friend. I mean, he's with Advance. I'm not really with anyone, but he's with Advance. He had his election, didn't do anywhere near as well as he should have, and I was speaking to him earlier on this week, and he's put a couple of podcasts out with me on. Please, because very, very few people have me on, as you know. Please do listen to the 2 interviews with Nick. They're only 20 minutes each or so, and like them, share them. I've shared them both on Facebook and on X, so please, if you can, like and share, and try and get the news out there. Rafi from the New Culture Forum messaged me earlier on in the week, and I will go down to visit them again, I think a week on Tuesday, so not this Tuesday, the Tuesday afterwards. I'll be in London, so if any of you are in London on the Tuesday, do let me know, and I'll try and say hello to you, or if need be in the evening, if there's enough of you around, I'll stay over the night, and I'll come back the day after, and I'll have a drink with you. It'd be my pleasure to do so. So if you're in London, not this Tuesday, the Tuesday after, just drop us a message, and I'd very much like to see you. I've done that, mate. Made no difference. I've done the side of vinegar. It's made no difference. Okay. Yes, Gary. My another of those memories I'll take with me was Gary's mother, who's in her 80s as well, I would imagine, Gary. Please, my apologies if she isn't, and Denise is on here. And we had a team out in one of the elections. And remember, I'd been arrested and locked up, and they were trying to keep me locked up until after the elections. Seriously, no joke. The police arrested me on the basis that I was causing the Labour Party issues in the election. We'd already took out 2 leaders. The 3rd leader was up, and the order had come down to try and have me put on remand, as in locked up. And I've got no criminal record or anything, but to have me locked up until after the election had finished, so as not to interfere campaign on the outcome of the election. And of course they failed. And what we then went and did was Labour Party insiders, people we knew, had given us the schedule of the Labour Party campaign in the lead up to the election, which included when Andy Burnham was turning up to campaign for Amanda Chadderton, and Gary's mother and Denise were chased him out right. So sorry. See, I knew I'd get told off. There you go, Denise. Margaret is just 70. Well, she was in her 60s, weren't she, Denise? It'd be fair to say a pensioner. 2 pensioners chased Andy Burnham out of town. Oh. And of course, a happy Mother's Day to all of you. It means, and if you have your mothers, you should cherish them. It's a blessing. I miss mine dearly. It is a blessing. Okay, let us carry on with this evening's transmission. I'm often asked, what is it we campaign for, and what sets us, or sets me, different from the others in this space? The Nick Buckleys, the Tommy Robinsons, the Maggie Olivers, and many others. And I try and explain myself where I say, listen, I'm a political campaigner. And the grooming gangs, and the cover-up of the grooming gangs, as far as I'm concerned, is a symptom of an underlying condition, of a cancer in our nation. And whilst I do campaign on the grooming gangs, and most of my work has been done on that, there's a number of themes that I overlap with, and together I think I explain things and tell a story in a way most people do not have the experience of. I'm not here as a journalist, I'm not here as a police officer or anything like that. My background is counter-extremism. That's what I did for decades. And children's safeguarding, which is, 30 years more. But those are my areas of specialism. And then I have, alongside that, and my critics struggle with this, I am brown-faced, I am Bangladeshi, I am a Muslim, and I'm from the working class communities that I'm so proud of who raised me. So that is combined what I bring to this space. So I look at this as a series of overlapping themes. The grooming gangs, the corruption of our democracy, as you've seen, the way in which the blackmailing by the cartels, by the Islamists, by the Pakistani sectarians, the postal vote fraud, the family voting, all of those things that I've been talking about consistently for 7 years now, over 7 years. The complete failure of our cohesion and integration strategy in this country, of which, if you go and look at the paperwork in the Home Office, in the Department for Education, all of that, my name was over it. You'll find my name in some of the working groups around that. Our complete failure to tackle Islamist extremism. And again, if you go and, I came from a space where I delivered contracts for the Office for Security and Counter-Terrorism. I sat in rooms with convicted terrorists, with jihadists, with people who'd blown things up or wanted to blow things up. So I'm not someone who's seen something on a TV or a small soundbite somewhere or read a report. It's been my life, and it's been my life for 30 years or so. So all of this is combined and overlaps. And I'm repeatedly asked, Raja, you need to write less, you need to do more videos, you need to say things in 10 words, 15 words. I can't do it. I genuinely can't do it. I've tried. I can't do it. Because there's layers to this, and there's a level of understanding and education that needs to take place. And I try my best with that. So you need to have the patience with this. If you believe you can just understand this in 50 characters or anything like that, then I'm not your person. I had a text, an email, or DM through, someone ranting at me. Why do you write so much? Why do you do this? I'm like, I can't do it any other way. I can't do it any other way. Have you got your headphones on, David? Are you in a hospital bed? You are, aren't you? Thank you. So, with that, let's talk about Jess Phillips. And the reason I want to talk about Jess Phillips is you'll have seen her this week stand up in Parliament and read those names out. And in the past, when she's read those names out, it's been so powerful. Isn't this great, this MP caring so much about these women who've been killed? And of course it's wrong. Let's be clear. No one I know is condoning that in any way, saying we shouldn't. We should. All of that we should. But we now know it's something else. And we now know it's because on the 2nd of January 2025, this was published in the Telegraph. Why would a self-proclaimed feminist refuse to hold an inquiry into the Oldham rape gangs? And I think it's a very legitimate question. And it's one she's never answered to this day. Why would a self-proclaimed feminist who finally finds herself in a position of power and influence refuse to hold an inquiry into the Oldham rape gangs? And not just refuse to hold an inquiry, sat on the letter for months and months before she refused. And I think it's worth me spending this evening talking about Jess Phillips and the why. And then tomorrow's episode, transmission, focusing on the rape gangs in Birmingham. I've got to do the work yet. I've got it all somewhere filed away. But story after story of the rape gangs in Birmingham. So, you've got to understand what's going on with her and what they're trying to do. And I say they, the establishment. They focus on it. Even the Home Office released something promoting Jess Phillips. Like, this is really important or something. No, it's not the Home Office's job to party politicise press releases. Yet they did. So you've got to understand we are up against all of them and have been from the beginning. This is the picture, as you can see, is from 2025 in January. So just as she got into power, and she wrote this, she wrote the letter, and I think she's come back this week or last week with a makeover, hasn't she? But they bring her back in every couple of months after she gets battered and goes running away again. I'm not for everyone, am I? I'll just try my best. So, there is a particular kind of politician who builds a career on performance. I think that's it, isn't it? It's not on judgment, it's not on value, it's not on ethics, it's on performance. There's a particular kind of politician who does that. Everything calibrated for the camera, designed to land on the right audience at the right moment. If you watched her recently, her voice breaks on cue, the tears, the eyes well up, the righteous anger arrives precisely when it's politically most useful. Jess Phillips is this politician perfected. That's what she is. She's this type of politician perfected. A decade of constructing a very specific image. Straight-talking feminist. The woman who says what others will not remember. I'll stab you in the front and not in the back. Those are her words, not mine. I'll stab you in the front, not in the back. The champion of abused women and girls who cannot be silenced by the powerful. I will stand up every year and read the names of those killed. You will not silence me. She has made a career from this image. She reads out names of murdered women every year in the House of Commons. She cries. People applaud. It's all over the newspapers. Yeah. Optics for sale. Performance is fine until the reality arrives. Give Jess Phillips real power over real decisions affecting real victims of real crimes against women and girls, and the performance collapses. What you find underneath is not principle. What you find underneath, as every career politician, what you find underneath is calculation and the very institutional cowardice she spent years denouncing from the safety of opposition. What I'll share with you is a matter of public record. I've just laid it out in a way that I hope tells a story. A sequence of decisions and statements placed in order and examined for what they are. I'm hoping you follow this through, and I'll share this in writing for tomorrow as well and put it on the newsletter, so you cannot look away from it, so you see it for what it is. And I believe that. I believe she is evil. And let me show you how. First of all, in the lead up to Labour taking power, remember the Gaza stuff going on? Well, on the 15th of November 2023, the exact date, 15th of November 2023, Jess Phillips resigned from Keir Starmer's shadow front bench. She had been serving as Shadow Minister for Domestic Violence and Safeguarding, I think that's the title she had. And what had happened was an SNP amendment to the King's speech called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Phillips voted for the immediate ceasefire. She lost her job. She published a resignation letter, described it as one of the toughest weeks she had experienced in Parliament. Remember, it was Hamas who had committed the atrocities on the 7th of October 2023. 6 weeks had passed. The Israeli military response was brutal in its early stages, but brutal. What would you have done if your country was invaded and your children had been kidnapped and raped? What would you have done? It's easy to judge from a distance. In Birmingham Yardley, where Phillips held her seat, a significant proportion of its constituencies had strong views on Palestine. Let's put it that way. Her letter said she was voting with her constituents, her head and her heart. She listed her constituents first, not her head, not her heart, her constituents, the people she needed to carry at the next election. Hiya, Stephen. I always smile when Stephen from Corrupt Holland says hello. We're international, Stephen. We've been on a cruise, aren't we? The Workers' Party, that's George Galloway's lot, was the principal threat to her seat. And remember, they'd took out the Labour Party candidate in Rochdale. George Galloway was MP. And they'd done it on a pro-Gaza mandate. Yeah, just basically went and got all the Pakistanis to vote for him and all the Muslims. So, the Workers' Party, George Galloway's lot, was a principal threat to her seat. It wasn't the Conservatives in places like Birmingham, yeah? And before that, she'd walked it. They just walked it. And Galloway's vehicle drew directly from the Muslim electorate Phillips depended on. And you've seen what happened in Gorton. How powerful a coordinated bloc Muslim vote is in Denton and Gorton. So a vote for a ceasefire, timed to coincide with maximum political pressure, was not simply a matter of conscience. It was also a matter of arithmetic. And still she nearly lost, didn't she? She was rewarded, even though she'd resigned, she was rewarded almost immediately after the general election in July 2024. Starmer gave her the role of Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls at the Home Office underneath Yvette Cooper. Give or take the same brief she had held in opposition. The same brief she had resigned from in apparent protest. She accepted it without hesitation. The principled resignation had kept her in power and cost her nothing, and now she was back in power with the authority to do something. She'd had a majority of over 10,000. It was reduced to under 700. She'll be gone at the next general election, by the way. The Greens is what the Muslims, the political Islamists, need. They've infiltrated them, they've got the model, and she'll be gone. Because they didn't have enough Muslims on their own to beat her. Because that demographic, the parties who opposed Labour in those ways, they didn't draw from across communities, but the Greens will. The loony lefties will vote. They'll vote for their own suicide. They'll vote for their own nooses, won't they? I think. So Phillips resigns from an opposition role over Gaza, confirmed she was voting with her Muslim constituents, and then took the actual government version of the same position 8 months later under the Prime Minister who'd refused to support the ceasefire at the beginning. Remember? If she resigned on principle, what changed? Of course, the principle hadn't changed. Gaza had not changed. If anything, it was worse. The deaths were mounting. She took the job anyway. You get to August 2024, 1 month into her government role. Don't know if you remember it. Phillips addressed an audience at the Kiln Theatre in London at an event billed An Evening with Jess Phillips. Maybe I should do an evening with Raja Miah. Have some samosas laid out on a platter. She told a story about a recent visit to A&E in Birmingham. She had gone in with breathing difficulties. The department was overcrowded. She described the facilities as worse than health facilities she had seen in war zones. God knows which war zone she'd been to. Then she told them how she got through ahead of other patients waiting around her. She was a politician and was recognised. The doctor who saw her was Palestinian. Almost all the doctors in Birmingham seemed to be Palestinian, it appears. He recognised her. He liked her. She had voted for a ceasefire. She got through quicker. A government minister sitting in a ministerial role at the Home Office publicly described receiving preferential NHS treatment. because of doctors' ethnic sympathies. It's all right. Let Arif and his lot come along. This is what I've got to say to you, mate. See these two fingers? That's what I've got to say to you guys. You see, you think I give a stuff about you lot. I don't. What's he called? Matt Goodwin made the mistake of thinking he could negotiate or compromise or reach out and speak to you. I know you people for what you are. Here. Take that and your Islamist nonsense and shove it. You want to go and campaign on something? You go and campaign on something. Don't tell me what I can campaign on. This isn't Pakistan, Harif. Yeah, I think so. So she's talking about, a doctor's ethnic sympathies aligning with her voting record. Can you imagine? And she said it at a public event as though it's something to celebrate with pride. Can you imagine? I got priority treatment because I was white. She represents a Birmingham constituency. Her party had just entered government. Her response to the state of that hospital was to call it worse than a war zone and explain how she skipped the queue. She's the safeguarding minister for England. The safeguarding minister for England. You should read this, because this is what these scumbags like Arif actually think. Tell them to teach their kids not to be so loose. You should read that again. I'm not banning him. I'm enjoying what you see. This is it. This is them. This is them. Don't blame us. It's the skill issue of your girls. They keep consenting. Where are their irresponsible parents? Tell them to teach their kids to not be so loose. And now I'll ban you. Locked in cages, gang raped, put on heroin, told if they didn't do what they were made to do, then the little sister who was 9 or 8 would get it. The mum would have her house burnt down. Yeah. Well, of course I blocked him, Edward. But I blocked him after he got to say what he wanted to say, so you all could see for yourselves. Thank you, Natanya, for the gift membership. And whilst I pause now to gather my thoughts again, you'll have to excuse me. Just some thank yous for the super chats. Thank you, Aid. Thank you so much. Sheila, thank you. I always say it's a lovely photograph. Is that your granddaughter, I think? It's a lovely Lovely, lovely photograph. Natanya, as always, thank you so much. If you are new to me, and many of you are new to me, because my YouTube stream that I've got on the screen here has crashed because of the numbers watching this evening. If you are new to me, please, please, please sign up to redwallandarabble.co.uk. Costs you absolutely nothing. You only pay if you want to. All of my work is shared for free. No paywalls, no member only, none of that. I just put it all out and just hope and pray that we get enough support. We've lost a lot of members since January. People have said, why have you lost the members? I don't know. If I was to hazard a guess, it would be that the members I've lost signed up for a year in the main, and they just committed for a year. I think that'd be why. I don't think it's anything more than that. 100,000 people view my content every month, so yeah, I'm struggling with just over 1,000, I think, of supporting members. So that'd be why. The majority don't support me, which is fine. We're still here. But when you've asked, I don't think it's anything to do with the way I work or anything. I think it's just I'll do something more on Islamophobia at some point. I know Toby Young and the Free Speech Union are judicial reviewing the government. Thank you. No, but still thank you. So, I'm historically of the left. I've shared this with you, and past member of the Labour Party. Kicked me out over the grooming gangs, remember, and my refusal to remain silent. And as my friend Moyib will share with you, he's not here tonight, but he'll share with you if you ever ask him, the bribes were considerate if I was to go silent. I have no need for anything beyond seeing my daughter grow up and looking after my mother until she passed a few years ago. There's nothing I want that they could offer me, unless it was a national inquiry, which wasn't it. So that is what started my career out. And I used to look at Jess Phillips and think, oh, great, good on her. She stands up, and so the brand, Jess Phillips, the brand, had won me over historically. And she was younger when she came up through the Labour Party. Now she'd won me over. I thought, yeah, there's a brummie there who speaks her mind. There is a website to join up to. It's at the top, linked at the top, and it's this, redwallandarabble.co.uk. But I knew when we finally forced the council to write to the government, and we'd got it too late, because by the time we got the numbers in the council, the government had more or less changed, and we knew a Labour government wouldn't support it. So I knew Jess Phillips, despite her public persona, could not support a national inquiry or even a public inquiry into what took place in Oldham. And her decision, and the way she made her decision, actually made it worse. And it blew up. So in January 2025, we put it out. We published her refusal to Oldham Council. Remember, we've removed the councillors and we forced the council to write to the government because we'd removed the councillors and we'd got the numbers we needed to write. Oldham Council requested a government inquiry into the child sexual exploitation in the town. Survivors, campaigners who had been fighting for accountability for years, 6 years by then, we wanted the state to take ownership, because we knew the local review we had by Andy Burnham was a stitch-up. It would have been nice if Maggie Oliver had spoken out and supported us at the time and said, yes, the Oldham inquiry was a stitch-up. She said that on the Mike Graham show a couple of weeks ago, where she made reference to the assurance review being a stitch-up in Oldham. And it was because she wasn't involved in Oldham. So because she didn't have oversight on it, they managed to stitch it up. You know, if she wants to believe that, that's fine. But it would have been nice if she had spoken out, and she didn't, did she, Julie? Julie's here. Julie and I have had these conversations. And I'm positive about all of them. Maggie Oliver, Sammy Woodhouse. I just felt a bit let down at that point. But what happened, and everything happens for a reason. And Jess Phillips said no to us. Jess Phillips said no to us. And I still remember it. I'm sat in, that's my sofa over there. I'm sat there on Christmas Eve, on New Year's Eve, sorry. And we'd lost. Because no one had picked up on a letter. So I published a letter. Charlie Peters, to his credit, picked up on it. He wanted his exclusive, fair enough, I don't care. Exclusive away, Charlie. Elon Musk picked up on it. And the Conservatives, who'd been battered and needed to reinvent themselves, jumped on it. Phillips had said it was for the local authority alone to decide to commission an inquiry locally, rather than for the government to intervene. The Safeguarding Minister for England handed a direct request to authorise government oversight of an inquiry into the systematic gang rape and abuse of working class girls to the council who had been responsible for the cover-up in the first place. And the same institution that had presided over the failures were given a get-out-of-jail-free card. The same local government machinery that had looked away for years, the same officials, the same culture, the same political networks that enabled the abuse in the first place were told to do it themselves. And she also knew that a local inquiry, the way she made reference to for the council to do it themselves, would have no statutory powers whatsoever. It could not compel evidence. It could not force witnesses to give testimonies, none of that. She knew. She told survivors, the Minister for Safeguarding Girls, the woman who'd stood every year and read a list out of women killed, told survivors the people who had failed them should be entrusted to investigate themselves. Robert Jenrick at the time called it shameful. Liz Truss described Phillips' ministerial title as a perversion of the English language. It's more than that though, isn't it? Jess Phillips built an entire career on the premise that institutions fail vulnerable women and girls, and somebody needs to hold those institutions to account. She made speech after speech about how the powerful protect each other. She cried in the Commons for murdered women. She accused Tory ministers of not giving a toss about violence against women and girls. Then, she was given the power to do something real, to sanction a government inquiry into the industrial-scale rape of children by organised gangs of men, shall we say. To say the state was finally going to take responsibility, to stand in front of survivors and say this time it would be different. She declined. She signed a letter saying, get lost. Go and do it yourself. when she knew the people who she was telling to go and do it themselves didn't have the power to do it themselves and couldn't be trusted to do it themselves. I'm afraid, for me, I have very little to do with the Rupert Lowe inquiry. I share this with everyone. I think I've shared it before and I'll share it again in case you've not picked up on it. I was one of the team. I advised and supported them, but for reasons they knew, they decided that my services were no longer required. And they sidelined me from the inquiry, didn't invite me to any of the meetings, didn't tell me, and and that's a decision Sammy Woodhouse made, and it's a decision she's entitled to make. So asking me about the Rupert Lowe inquiry, probably I'm not the best person to ask about it because I have none of the inner workings of it. What I see is what you see. So all I know on it is what they published in the crowdfunding that we all supported. And like many of you, I'm waiting for the detailed report to come out, which is something they promised after the last round of hearings. On the 9th of April, 2025, Phillips made a statement in the House of Commons on grooming gangs. Conservative MP Katie Lamb. I like Katie Lamb. If I'm a fan, I'd describe myself as a fan. I'd like to meet Katie Lamb. Conservative MP Katie Lamb raised the issue forcefully. She quoted graphic details. Yeah, she read the testimonies. Yeah. Excuse my English. Fuck all the white girls and fuck the government. Direct transcripts. Yeah. She asked directly whether the government would acknowledge the racially motivated nature of these crimes. Phillips dismissed her. She told her to read the ICSA report. The ICSA report, which is the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, published by Alexis J. in 2022, after 7 years of work, was her answer. We have already done this work. There is nothing left to examine. Go and read ICSA. I've read ICSA. I've ripped ICSA to pieces. Many times on this journey. Rotherham is mentioned, I think, just once in the entire ICSA document. It's not examined, not forensically analysed, mentioned once. Rochdale appears only in the context of the Liberal Democrat MP Cyril Smith, who abused little boys. The towns whose grooming gangs convictions first brought this scandal to national attention, Rochdale, Rotherham, are effectively absent from the 7-year £6 million, maybe more, I don't know, millions of pounds report. The report's 20 recommendations, these are the what Maggie Oliver is now taking the Labour government to court over, were not implemented by the Conservative government that received them. Not one. 2 years had passed. Nothing moved. Phillips knew all of this. She had to know this. She was a shadow minister in the exact area when the report was published. She knew survivors had condemned the ICSA process. She knew Maggie Oliver, the detective who blew the whistle in Rochdale, had called it inadequate. She knew it was regarded by the people it was supposed to serve as a cover-up. And even then, the recommendations had not been implemented, and this Labour Party have not implemented the recommendations either, which is why Maggie Oliver took out a judicial review. I'm sorry to hear that, Jenny. So, knowing all that, Brand Jess Phillips stood in the dispatch box and told an MP quoting rape victims from court transcripts to go and read a report that she and her government had ignored. That had nothing to do with the grooming gangs. A parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Safeguarding does not get to plead ignorance about the primary national inquiry in her own field. Either she has read it and was being deliberately misleading about its scope, or she had not read it and was unfit for the role. She's not read it, has she? We've all seen her performing. She'd not read it. I don't think so. The deflection to Iksha served a specific purpose. It allowed the government to say the matter had been examined without doing the examination, to cite a prior process and a reason for not starting a real one, a process condemned by the very people it was supposed to serve. It was a deflection. She might describe it as a deflection. The other campaigners and the survivors who knew Iksha and knew what was going on and knew what made the grooming gangs and rape gangs distinct. It was just another cover-up, wasn't it? It was just another cover-up in a series of cover-ups. It was the latest round of cover-ups. It got worse for Jess Phillips. On the 28th of April 2025, the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp questioned Phillips in the House of Commons. We played the videos, remember? If you were with me, you'll have remembered. You'll have seen it. She admitted there had been a cover-up of the grooming gang scandal. She admitted it, remember? She knew all about it. She said it all loud. She acknowledged it. A cover-up had occurred. She then argued that this is why a national statutory inquiry was not needed. I know all about the cover-up, but we don't need a national inquiry. I'm not doubting that at all. I don't think I've said anything at all contrary to that, have I, Adi? But what I have said, and what I am clear on, is that in Oldham, when we needed help, she wasn't there to help us. It wasn't politically convenient for Maggie Oliver to help us, because we were fighting on the front line, and it was a dirty fight. And we exposed the cover-up and forced this over line because we exposed the cover-up. It's easy now for people to say, these are racially motivated crimes, religiously justified. I was arrested for these things. It's easy now to say, yes, the assurance review in Oldham was a cover-up, or what isn't worth the paper written on. At the time, no one was saying that. We were saying that, and we were being called far-right conspiracy theorists. I think Hope Not Hate ran a campaign against us. So, no way am I criticising Maggie Oliver's work with the survivors. She made a political decision. So the minister responsible for safeguarding children against being gang raped stood in Parliament, confirmed that organised cover-up of mass child rape had taken place, and used that confirmation as an argument against full accountability. The cover-up happened, therefore we do not need to fully examine the cover-up. Someone told her what conclusion to reach, and she found the words to reach it. It did not succeed. It was noticed, it was recorded, it sits in Hansard. Go and check the date. Chris Phillips was never a reluctant participant in the cover-up, managed above by her more senior ministers. Though that element almost certainly existed. Phillips was an active participant in the cover-up. She chose her words, she chose her arguments, she chose to stand at the dispatch box and cite an inadequate inquiry as a reason for not holding an adequate one. She chose to admit a cover-up and argue against examining that cover-up. She did that all by herself. No one forced her hand. Sorry, not my placemat stuck with my glass. Bernardo's, Save the Children, the Children's Society. I worked for the Children's Society for a long stint. Nothing from any of them. Oxfam, do lots of work with child trafficking and stuff internationally. Nothing. Mate, you know I respect you. I speak to everyone who wants to speak with me. I've reached out to her, I've had an exchange, but she's never met with me. No, Maggie's not a Labour supporter. I think Maggie's politics of reform. And I'll share this with you as an observer what took place. This time last year, Rupert Lowe was crowdfunding for his inquiry, and I think it got to 600,000. And he was doing well. I'd supported, I'd promoted it, it was doing well. And for some reason, Maggie Oliver launched her own with GB News, supporting her own crowdfunder. And when she launched her own, I think it got to 100,000, and it stalled Rupert Lowe's fundraising. If I was to look at it the way I don't want to look at it, because I don't like to look at people that way, especially people who do really good work, I would say some of that was a political move by Reform to try and limit the fundraising of Rupert Lowe's inquiry and counter some of that. There was no need for Maggie to launch hers when she did, in the way she did. Those are my thoughts on that. If you're finding value in this, please like, please share. Let me just have a drink before I carry on. Please, if you can, sign up and support me via Redwall and the Rabble. We've got over 10,000 subscribers now. It's took a long time. It took far longer than it should have. You see, I am blacklisted by the mainstream media. You see, there's no reason for this to be the case. I come with a history and a track record that, dare I say, deserves legitimacy, deserves respect. I explain, articulate, and I've been at the centre of this campaign for 7 years, 8th year now. Everything I've shared and has been proven to be accurate. Every attempt to silence me has been proven to be what they do to whistleblowers for speaking out. Yet not one of these mainstream media outlets will speak with me, but they will stir shit about me. So please, if you find value, sign up to Redwall and Rabble. We're at 10,000. That needs to get to 50,000 now. It's clear. In the next 3 years, whilst this goes on, we need to increase our numbers because no one else is going to tell our story for us. Thank you. Thank you, Rian. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Steve. Wow, Stuart, thank you. That's really generous. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Joy. Thank you so much. I'll just put the, I should have tabbed it, but I'll put that up. That's the webpage, redwallandarabble.co.uk. And at the very least, sign up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It's embarrassingly low. Oh yes, Ellen, and it's fine because they've supported me once. I checked the analytics, Ellen, to see, oh, have people got tired? Have people stopped reading my stuff? No, the people who've stopped subscribing, the vast majority of them are still reading the content. I think they just wanted to, or could only afford to support me for a year. I think France, yes, I'm showing you how to hold the government's inquiry to account. Yeah, absolutely. It's completely free. All of my work is completely free. As I've shared with you, it's not something I can say really in terms of his inquiry. I'm looking forward to the report, the same as all of you are. I wrote something positive on Rupert Lowe's inquiry. I think during the time of the actual inquiry, he'd shared something of children being trafficked to Pakistan, and he wanted a meeting with the Home Secretary. And I put something out there in complete support of that, and I was in complete shock, if I'm honest with you, because it wasn't something I'd heard. I'd heard it in the sort of whispers of nonsense sort of stuff, but I'd not seen any evidence of it. I'd heard of Pakistani girls being trafficked to Pakistan to be married when they were 10, 11, 12, and that wasn't unusual. But I'd not heard of white girls being trafficked to Pakistan. Oh, you know, but who? If they've come up with the evidence from the testimonies they've took, and my starting point is always to believe the survivor. I think as a consequence of everything, my starting point is always to believe the survivor. I think that needs investigating. It is a stain on our nation. It's a national shame, Chloe. It's a national shame. So in June 2025, just when the Conservatives are going to get a vote and expose them even more, the government announces a statutory inquiry into the grooming gangs. Baroness Louise Casey had completed her audit, remember? They'd sent her off to do her audit, and Casey looked at it and said, no, we need a national inquiry. She talked about the overrepresentation of Pakistani men, and she also talked about the Home Office's report, not worth the paper it was written on. It jumped to conclusions that it could never evidence about the majority not being Pakistani or whatever. Yeah. That audit found clear evidence of the overrepresentation among suspects of men of Asian and Pakistani heritage. Official language by an official appointee from the same government. The pressure had become uncontainable. Reform UK was exploiting the vacuum, I suppose, is the right word, because they've not been very good on this, have they? But Nigel Farage had joined forces with, I think it was Labour peer Maurice Glassman, to demand a national inquiry. Local elections were approaching. The political cost of continued refusal had exceeded the political cost of concession, knowing that they could rig it afterwards. And Phillips was put in charge of establishing the National Inquiry. Yeah, she was. Fiona was. But I've not come across anyone who actually has, Glory, is what I'm saying. Not that it hasn't took place. I think when it comes to child safeguarding, you should follow every risk, shouldn't you? So Phillips was tasked with setting up an independent commission on grooming gangs to conduct targeted investigations in local areas. Survivors, like Fiona, were brought into the process through a liaison panel. Within weeks, the problems began. There was a manipulation right from the outset about the scope. The survivors on the liaison panel had one central concern. They had spent years watching institutions refuse to engage with the ethnic and religious dimensions of their abuse. Inquiry after review, after inquiry, after audit, God knows what the different words were they used, had obscured the pattern visible in every court conviction. The children who'd been gang raped were white. The men who'd done the gang raping were Asian, Pakistani, predominantly Muslim, overwhelmingly. At least one perpetrator had told a victim to her face that they were there to rape white girls as an act of contempt for the government. We're here to rape the white girls, and we're here to fuck the white girls and fuck the government. Remember Katie Lamb? The Casey audit had confirmed the pattern in official language. The survivors assumed the inquiry would be built around it. What other thing was it meant to be investigating, if not these grooming gangs? Something called NWG Network, so this is the charity appointed by the Home Office to liaise with survivors, sent out a consultation document. That document asked whether the inquiry should take a broader approach beyond grooming gangs, whether the scope should be widened beyond organised gang-based exploitation entirely. We found that survivors had been put on that liaison panel who were not victims of the grooming gang, survivors who were converted Muslims, Muslim reverts, who'd gone on record to say we need to prevent the race and the religion being looked at. When I exposed it with recordings, lawyers wrote to me, threatening me. I think I've got a full set now. I never thought I'd get the lawyers of survivors writing to me, threatening me. So you got from the politicians, the Pakistanis, the councils, the Labour Party, and now lawyers of the survivors. Fiona Goddard had been abused by a Bradford-based grooming gang. Yeah. She texted Jess Phillips directly. She sent her the questions from the consultation document. She asked why a consultation supposed to be about grooming gangs was asking whether it should be about grooming gangs. Phillips replied. She said she did not want Goddard to misunderstand or something. The reason for the question was differing views. The consultation was seeking a clear steer. It was her view that it should only be the grooming gangs inquiry. It was not right for her to make that decision without formal consultation. Broadening the scope, even exploring to broaden the scope to general child sexual exploitation, dissolving any ethnicity-specific findings, which is what they're still trying to do with the draft terms of reference. That consultation shut 2 weeks ago. If the inquiry examines all child sexual exploitation rather than organised gang-based exploitation by predominantly Pakistani men, well, it disappears, doesn't it? It becomes meaningless. The pattern is gone. The conclusions become general. The recommendations become generic. No institution, no individual, no network can be held specifically to account. Can you see? None of this is an accident. This is the point. What Phillips was trying to do immediately after they were forced to announce the inquiry is something that they're continuing to do all the way up to the closure of the draft terms of reference. They want to avoid the racial and religious correlation. When Fiona and 3 other survivors resigned from the panel in October, they did so for these very reasons. They said the proceedings had been dominated by secretive conduct. The scope was being manipulated away from what had been promised. Fiona Goddard said she had documents and emails to prove it. Phillips, the champion for women and girls survivors, stood up in the House of Commons and said the allegations of intentional delay, lack of interest, widening of the inquiry's scope or dilution were false. She said the suggestion that the remit would be expanded was categorically untrue. She said the inquiry would remain laser focused. Unfortunately for Phillips, Fiona Goddard kept all the papers. Why would someone who'd been failed the way she'd been failed not have a paper trail? The email proving the scope question had been asked existed. The text exchange between Fiona and Phillips existed. That exchange showed Phillips herself acknowledging the scope was not settled. She stood in Parliament and told the country the allegations were categorically untrue. She called, to all extents and purposes, she called a rape gang survivor a liar. Quote, let me find it. Being publicly contradicted and dismissed by a government minister when you are a survivor, telling the truth takes you right back to the feeling of not being believed all over again. That is from a woman who had been raped by a grooming gang. That is what the safeguarding minister for girls did to her. Mid-October. 18 weeks after the inquiry was announced. Both candidates shortlisted to chair it had withdrawn. One was a social worker, Annie Hudson. She withdrew first. And the second one, Jim Gamble, ranted and raved, went on X to rant at me, remember, because I called him out for being a Labour Party insider. And then he denied it, and I shared the bloody BBC articles of his direct links with the Labour Party. Both withdrew. Both had been lined up. Why? Why do you think they'd been lined up? Jess Phillips was in charge of this. 5 survivors had resigned from the liaison panel. 4 of them wrote to their Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, demanding Phillips resign as a condition of their return. Unprecedented. Her conduct had shown she was unfit to oversee a process requiring survivors to trust the government. Her departure would signal the government was serious about accountability. They removed her. And Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, started fronting all of this, remember? And she's been on the sidelines for some time now. The inquiry essentially had collapsed before it had even begun. Not because accountability for organised child rape is inherently impossible to deliver. No, it collapsed because the person responsible for it could not be trusted. Survivors had evidence of this. And when they raised it, she stood in Parliament and told them that the evidence was untrue. And then Starmer publicly backs Phillips. Yeah, I have plenty of thoughts on that. Not for today, but yeah, I do. This isn't a collection of isolated decisions, isolated mistakes. No, it's not. Not at all, lady. If you follow my work, you know the Islamophobia law's got bugger all to do with silencing Rupert Law. The Labour Party need to take something back to the Muslim communities to fight the sectarians who've now sided with the Greens. The Muslim vote is important in at least 100 constituencies, and the Labour Party need to deliver, take something back as a peace offering. Tell me something new. What Phillips did isn't a collection of isolated errors. It's not a minister out of her depth, but she is out of her depth. The pattern is consistent and deliberate and traceable across every stage of this story. Identify the minimum defensible position. Hold it until the political cost of holding it exceeds the political cost of moving. Move only as far as necessary. Design any accountability mechanisms to limit what it can find. When survivors or campaigners challenge the design, contradict them. When the contradiction is proven false, just stay in post. Just move away and someone else will cover for you. Phillips's driving calculation at every stage is identical to the calculation that produced the Gaza resignation. What do I need to do to remain in this role? What do I need to say to survive the next news cycle? What can I concede without conceding anything that matters? You can see it. Labour's handling of this inquiry has been a collective failure. Starmer's involved. Talked about the Asbos, you know. He's got skeletons, hasn't he? Yvette Cooper's involved. The Home Office is involved. The entire machinery of the party. The decision to refuse Oldham was almost certainly made above Phillips's pay grade and handed to her to absorb, because what they thought they had done is killed it when they did that. The calculation that a statutory inquiry should be delayed for as long as possible was a government calculation. The terms of reference, the draft terms of reference, that are not fit for purpose, and it's not me now saying it, it's dozens and dozens of MPs and 20,000 people signed that consultation document. 300 of you wrote to your MPs. Jess Phillips chose to be the face of the cover-up. She took the brief, she took the arguments, she stood at the dispatch box and used them. She was not a passive instrument, she was an active advocate for a position she knew was indefensible, and she chose every word herself. A self-described feminist. Throughout her entire public career, She made this identity fundamental, foundational to her persona. It is in every speech, every media appearance. The annual reading of the names, she did again this week. The ceremony, and it is a ceremony, isn't it? That draws more coverage than almost any other regular parliamentary event. Feminism as a political commitment means that sex means the sex of the victim matters morally, and it's right. It means violence against women and girls is not acceptable, regardless of who commits it or who is protected by denying it. It means the powerful do not get to decide whose abuse counts more. Yet here we are. Here we are. Phillips has deployed this identity as feminism selectively. When the perpetrators are the kind of men her political tribe approves of targeting, in opposition, when she could direct criticism at Tory ministers without the accountability that comes with power, in speeches and television appearances throughout a media career that has made her nationally known. Yet here, she has not deployed it when the perpetrators are overwhelmingly of Pakistani heritage and Muslim, because the political cost of saying so is concentrated in her own constituency. She has not deployed it when the inquiry she is supposed to be running is being steered away from the evidence. Why else does it not want to look at race and religion? Why? She has not deployed it for the women on her liaison panel, Fiona Ellie Reynolds, the women she called liars in front of Parliament. Feminism is a noun, yeah? It describes a principle. I said Jess Phillips is also a noun. It describes something else. Nobody in the mainstream political press will do what I've just done in, an hour or so. They won't share this plainly. Jess Phillips holds a seat in Birmingham Yardley. Her majority at the 2004 election was under 700 votes. Her primary competition came from pro-Gaza Muslim vote mobilised independent candidate, the Muslim bloc vote. The electorate that kept her in Parliament is disproportionately from the community most politically implicated in any ethnically or religiously focused rape gang inquiry. She is the minister responsible for that inquiry. This is a clear conflict of interest. I'm not alleging corruption. It's a clear conflict of interest. The minister charged with designing and running an inquiry whose findings may politically damage her own constituency coalition has an objective interest in ensuring those findings are diluted, obscured, or prevented from reaching the conclusions the evidence points towards. Even if her intentions were honest, this is a problem. Regardless of her intentions, I think it's clear what her intentions are through her actions. What should have happened is they should have appointed a minister who does not have this issue in their constituency. They should have. They should have gone to someone in the House of Lords if need be. It was easy to resolve if they wanted to do. Either this was not identified, in which case the political operation around Starmer is as inept as critics have argued. Oh, we didn't think of that. Of course it was identified. It was considered. It was pandered to. And this is why we have a government that deliberately placed a conflicted minister in charge of an inquiry into crimes against its political opponents' daughters and ran the process accordingly. It's not incompetence, is it? You can say the first possibility is incompetence, but it's not incompetence because we know what the second possibility is, and it's something worse. The record is not circumstantial. It is sequential. You can see it's sequential. She refused Oldham. She cited a discredited inquiry as the reason to avoid a real one. She admitted a cover-up and used the admission as an argument against examining it. She accepted the government job of running the very inquiry she had spent months arguing was unnecessary. She allowed the scope of that inquiry to be quietly stretched away from its founding purpose. When survivors challenged this publicly, she contradicted them in Parliament. The evidence proved her wrong. She stayed in post. Starmer backed her. The survivors who gave years of their lives to force this inquiry into existence are now pursuing accountability through the Conservatives, through Reform, through Restore, because they cannot trust the government's process. That's what's happened. That's the outcome. This is what Jess Phillips' safeguarding brief has produced. So, you'll have to excuse me if the annual reading of the names is not something I see as anything other than theatre. Let the cameras be there. Let her voice break on cue. Let her brand as the feminist Jess Phillips be reinforced. But for those of us who know, we know the truth. The girls whose names do not get read, the ones gang raped for years, no. The ones who waited for a statutory inquiry, no. The ones who went to the liaison panel in good faith and were called liars by the minister supposed to protect them, no. These women will never be on Jess Phillips' list. Those gang raped by the Muslims, the Pakistanis, whose block vote she relies on and the entire Labour Party machinery relies on, will never be on that list. And that is why this national inquiry is rigged. It's another reason why. My intention is to come back tomorrow and do an in-depth analysis on Birmingham. I've gone on longer than the hour I wanted to do. It became an hour and a half. So my apologies to those of you who want a shorter transmission. But saying that, most of you have stayed with me this evening. 1,700 of you so far this evening. Please, the work I do is only possible with your support. All I ask you to do is sign up to a bloody newsletter or subscribe to my YouTube channel. At the very least, it takes you 2 seconds to do. And if you can, please subscribe. There's a few more. Thank you. Thank you for the last of that. So, Redwall and the Rabble. I'm here Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. I think Wednesday night's the other plan, but I might try it earlier on Wednesday. Just to see how the figures are doing. I put out a video, an edited video, earlier on this week, not a live one, and it's done really well in terms of engagement figures. But I know the community values the live broadcasts. I know it means a lot to a lot of you. It's exhausting, if I'm honest with you, on top of everything else, but the aim is to do it 4 nights a week, and we'll try again this week. So please, at the very least, like the bloody video, share it, subscribe if you haven't, it'll take you 2 seconds, and click on that link. For crying out loud, please click on this link to Redwall and the Rabble and sign up for free. And if you found value in this broadcast, I am 100% community funded. No one else funds me. I live off the £3 that most people who support me financially support me with. Buy me a coffee link is there, or you can PayPal me. And I will see you tomorrow evening. Very good night.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.